Yeah. So 2.5 years ago, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I got to chapter 5 and I was like, oh my God, there's a whole nother world out here. Because before that, I was a middle school biology teacher and then I stayed home with our kids. And I said to my husband, I'm like, we have to take a HELOC out on our house because we had lived in our house for 10 years. So we had plenty of equity. And we bought a flip in Westchester instead of the condo in Florida. And in 6 weeks, we made $100,000. And my husband was like, all right, babe, go ahead. So then it was like this profit, what do you do with it? And we knew that we didn't want to use that money. It felt like it wasn't ours. It was after all the debt was paid back, we had this money and we're like, now what do we do? Yeah. And we invested that into short-term rentals. So it's just kind of been rinse and repeat since then.
Yeah. It's crazy that you were reading a book and you said you didn't even get to the end of it. Did you end up reading the rest of it?
Still haven't. I probably should. It's just been like hit the ground running one foot after the other since then.
Yeah, for sure. So what in chapter 5 or leading up to chapter 5 just flip that switch for you?
I truly never had any concept other than you go to work, this is your paycheck, and then you use that paycheck, and once it's gone, and then you do it again, right? You keep showing up at work, like trading time for money.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that you could use your money to make money and the difference, like Robert Kiyosaki talked about the difference between assets and liabilities. And I truly had no concept of that, which sounds weird now, but I had no idea that you could sink money into something that would make money. So when he clearly told about what an asset and what a liability was, I'm like, I'm going to buy more assets and I'm going to use the assets to pay for my liabilities.
Yeah. I read the book as well. But I actually got introduced to Kiyosaki I saw one of his YouTube videos, and you know the quadrant thing that he talks about, and he just kind of put it in perspective. I'm like, okay, you got small businesses, employees, big businesses, and investors. And the one thing that they were talking about was the government is not your enemy. They're more like a partner. And the tax structure is set to incentivize people to do things the government doesn't want to do or isn't good at, like agriculture, energy, housing, those type of things. So, and then I was like, it really does switch your mindset when you think about it that way. There's a lot of people out there that want to say, oh, rich, bad. But I mean, they're not doing anything wrong. And I mean, I'm sure there's bad people out there, but they're really just kind of looking at things through a different lens.
That's so wildly true. And it's such a good takeaway from that book. I feel like each time you read it, and if I read it again, you get different takeaways. Because when I was reading it, I had such a baseline. But I remember used to be like afraid of talking about taxes or not wanting to deal with it or just like, oh, tax season. And now I'm like, the more you learn, the more you can work it to your benefit. And that's been a really cool part of real estate.
Yeah, for sure.